That's really interesting and a point that I didn't even think of, much like the thunderstorm situation you talked about earlier. So, how do you protect your business from political and social risks?
So the easiest answer is you decide where you want to be doing business, and if you are doing business in a high risk area, then you need to think about what mitigating controls, what protections do you put in place in order to limit your exposure, and making certain that you have a redundant system systems to be able to deliver your product or to sustain your business in times of challenge. One thing that is interesting to me about the perception of risk is a lot of work has been done about our own bias towards large, extreme, severe risks, which we tend to overvalue. We're all, of course, concerned about terrorism in our world, and we know that that's a risk. But it was fascinating to me to learn that a different category of risk that insurers are exposed to, one that's called strikes, riot, and civil commotion risk, or SRCC risk, in 2022 was substantially larger in the losses that it generated relative to terrorism risks. And the reason I mention it is that for a company that is operating in an environment that has a higher perceived level of social risk or political risk, they need to understand what could be disruptive to their overall business model. These are risks that we track on a global basis and on a geospatial basis to help insurance companies understand their portfolios and also how corporations should be evaluating their level of risk to inform their mitigation and resilience strategies.
Are companies thinking about this right now? Because I would think of the usual, hey, if you build your business in Tornado Alley, you should prepare for that, insure that way. But political and social risks, that's not at the top of mind for me. Granted, I'm not a business owner, but are business owners thinking this way?
I think increasingly so. And I can put myself in the shoes of a leader of a public company, and I have to think about and have experienced within our company threats that we have been exposed to from a political risk standpoint or in a social risk perspective, where we have made adjustments in how we're operating and where we're operating in order to mitigate those. A dimension of this that you'll hear a lot about in the insurance industry is cyber risk. And so cyber risk can be viewed as having an element of political or social risk associated with it. And what we have found is that there are clearly scenarios that could generate substantial losses for the U.S. or for the global economic environment that could exceed over $1 trillion, which could certainly put a big dent in the overall insurance industry's surplus. These are risks that really require, again, great partnership between corporations that are exposed to them, as well as government support in order to provide early warning systems and mitigation strategies to address them. But certainly cyber risk is probably on the minds of the vast majority of corporate leaders that I speak to.